Stefan West.
My name is Stefan Thomas West. I was born 7th of the 4th, 7th of April, 1991. I've got a mum and dad, Tracy and Mark West, and I've got a brother and a sister, Maddie and Tyson. We lived in Geelong for a fair bit. We moved heaps of houses a lot actually, and then lived in Tamworth for a little bit when I was really little. I always think Tamworth is in Victoria somewhere, but it's not. I think it's in New South Wales. Yeah, it is. It's in New South Wales. I was a happy little kid. I loved lots of things, I suppose. This is really weird because I'm so used to, like, whenever I talk about anything to do with my past, it's like, it started when the bad stuff happened. So it's, I never talk about childhood, it's kind of cool. So as a child, I loved sport, I loved music. I played roller hockey, which was rad actually. I loved roller hockey. And then played football as well. I was that kid that kind of tried everything for just like a little bit. And yeah, I don't know if it was, we'll have to ask my parents, I don't know if it was good. Or I remember Dad one day was just like, you just decided to stop out of nowhere. I don't know why. One day you just got home and you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. He's like, okay, we'll do the next thing.
Stefan!
So yeah, roller hockey, I loved skateboarding, and yeah, aggressive inline, so roller skating as well when I was young. I played football for a fair bit. I loved football when I was a kid. I played football till like under 16s, under 17s. And yeah, music was just huge for me. So like piano, I loved piano, and then started playing trumpet because my dad played in concert bands, and still, I don't know how long it's been since he's done it now. It's probably been a decade or so, I could be wrong. But his father played trumpet in, I might be f***ing this up, but I think in the armies, because he was in the army, maybe. I should know that. Definitely played trumpet though, and definitely played in concert bands. So I was like, F*** that, I want to learn trumpet, let's play. So I played that for like 2 years, and then after, I just remember being in this big concert band from 10 to 12, and just looking at the drummer, looking at the guy playing bass, just being like, oh. My favourite bands started to become like Blink-182, Sum 41, all those like pop punk bands. Still to this day love them to bits. So yeah, then I moved into bass guitar, and it was funny because my brother got a drum kit and my sister got a guitar, and then within a couple of years all of the instruments were just in my room. Loved them. So yeah, I continued to play bass but moved into guitar. We started a band when we were 14 called Table 29. Which was great. Played lots of pop punk covers, and we had our own, we had one original song called Another Week, Another Guy, that our guitarist, I actually still remember how the chorus went. So our guitarist wrote it, and it was, another week, another guy, why did you have to leave this time? I do not, yeah, anyway, I'm gonna stop there. But that was, well, yeah, that was a while ago. So yeah, always loved music. It's always been an incredibly large part in my life. And yeah, then skating and just loved that whole culture. Like loved punk rock music, loved skateboarding, loved aggressive inline, loved anything that didn't seem like my parents had anything to do with. Loved anything to do with, against like whatever a social norm would be, I suppose. And I think I've carried that on to the rest of my life because I think there's, the way a lot of things are ingrained in society is very problematic, and I think that's what I loved about that kind of you to mainstream culture, because I was like, well, this doesn't work for me, and I can see it's not working for everyone else. Everyone doesn't look that happy, so maybe this is a mixture of ways to move through that. So I went to Catholic primary school, Catholic secondary school, which was always wild because you had to go to church, you had to go to all boys secondary school as well, which wasn't very good for me. My mum will be the first one to say we wish we didn't send you there. But yeah, it was really funny because I think like the basis of so much religion is fucking great, because it's like if you just look at it, strip it down to the bare bones, it's like they're just asking you to be a good person. And if you don't take things too literally, which I think we all do a little bit too much, but if we took them metaphorically, the way that maybe they were written in that time period, It's like it's quite poetic, it's beautiful. I think that like idea of everything kind of, it just led to so much curiosity within me, because I'm like, these people are crazy, like quite crazy. That was really interesting because the secondary school I went to, it just wasn't that good for me at all. So I suppose where the normal story, I suppose, which is so weird now that I say it out loud, because I don't think, so this is a side note and not quite about my story, and we can absolutely cut this out, but it's just funny how everyone, I think so much of the time it's like, what is your story? And it's like only the negative parts. And I've like noticed that within myself over the past few days, because it's like, what's your story? Oh, this time period of my life. What about all the good shit? Yeah, so the part where it would normally start was probably I was around 15. I just used to start crying on the way home from school, just randomly in the car. I remember decisions became way harder to make. I would get what I found out to be very anxious around people in class. I remember I used to hate getting up to even go to the bathroom in class, weirdly enough. I'd just get what I now know to be really anxious and have some sort of an anxiety attack. And just about like standing up in front of everyone, which was just really weird when I look back at it, because the years prior to that, I was up playing gigs in front of people. So yeah, I remember one day driving home from school, Mum just being like, what's wrong? Like, why are you crying? And I just was in tears. I'm like, I don't know. Like, I'm not sure. So we went and saw a doctor, as you would. A psychiatrist, which I then went to see a psychiatrist. And basically they just, put me on medication immediately. I remember they were these short release ones. And I remember them specifically saying, hide this bottle, because you can get addicted to this type of medication, because it was like a short release. I don't know what it was exactly, I can't remember, but I do remember taking it and within 5 or 10 minutes just sort of being like, I don't feel anything. Saw that first psychiatrist, and that was the first person that said to me that you're broken. So essentially it was like, you need to take medication. So the next conversation I had with them was, you have anxiety disorder. You need to take medication for 2 years minimum before the chemicals in your brain would start to level out for you to be normal like everybody else. That f***ed me until last year. That statement to a child, and I understand everyone's just doing what they do best. Everyone's just trying to get by and help people the way that they are. But that, for whatever way that I took it, really negatively impacted me, because the rest of my life was built upon this idea of this foundation. The idea that everything that I was built upon was essentially broken. So I tried to fix everything from that point forward. I remember taking this medication I didn't take it for very long. I maybe took it for a month, 3 weeks, maybe a little bit longer. It absolutely alleviated all of my anxiousness, all of my anxiety. But I just remember I didn't feel like me. Like, I didn't feel anything like me. It was like I got rid of all the good parts too. So I didn't want to proceed forward with that route. And also, all these people that I was talking, like, I remember looking at this woman, again, doing her best, like trying to help everybody. But I remember looking at her going, how the f*** would you know? How would you know what I'm going through? You're like treating me like you're saying that I'm sick. I have a sickness. Like, how do you know what I'm going through? You're not a 15-year-old boy. You've never been a 15-year-old boy. You just read about me in a bunch of books. I had a lot of trouble with that, as you can still see. Around a very similar time frame, I started modeling. My auntie used to take me up to her, his name is Stavros. This dude was a legend, actually. Really funny side story. So I used to go up and hang out with my auntie all the time. And I was a curious, I'm still a very curious person. Like, if I don't understand something or haven't experienced it, I'm like, I want to touch it. Or I want to know what that is. And my auntie was in this 6-story, she's worked in a lot of different dental clinics. And I was waiting downstairs at this office on Collins Street, CBD, Melbourne. And the glass on the fire, break glass for emergency. That looks really rattly. So I touch it. It's like, touched it a couple more times. So the alarm goes off and I was like, oh my God. I look up to the cameras and I was like, I didn't mean to touch it. Because all I could remember is people being like, if you set the alarms off, it's like thousands and thousands of dollars. And I'm like, I'm a kid. I can't pay for this. I definitely don't want my parents to pay for this. I'm looking up going, don't, sorry. And my auntie walked down and saw me standing there and she looks at me, she's like, what did you do? And I was like, I didn't mean to. And like 6 fire engines rocked up in Melbourne CBD and I was like, oh my God. My auntie used to take me up to get my hair cut all the time. So this guy Stavros was like, we need to take photos of you. We would love you to be a model in this competition, this American crew competition. So I did the first year, which was great, it was fun, he cut my hair. And then the second year I won the Victorian leg of it, which was awesome. And around the same time I started doing, I went into a bunch of different modeling agencies because I was like, obviously I had all this stuff happening to me while I was, and it was funny, I was talking to Mon about this the other day. I don't think about this shit much. I just don't really want to. But going back through photos and actually seeing everything that I was going through at that point, I think at that point in my life, I definitely clinged onto this modeling thing. So I had a bunch of people looking at me going, we want you to do this, you can be successful at this, let's do this, let's do that. I was so f***ing insecure because I'm also seeing psychologists, I'm seeing psychiatrists, and they're all telling me that I'm sick and I'm broken. And I have this one spectrum of people in Melbourne as well. So I'm from Geelong in Melbourne saying, we love you, come do this, do that. So I really like clung on to this, but also was super ambitious and super inspired by this because the creative side of me could see these designers and all the f***ing love that they were putting into it as well. Was really, it was exciting at that point in my life, but it also wasn't great for me either because I was sitting in rooms of 20 to 30 other guys kind of being judged on the way that you looked. So that part was a little bit dicey. When I say a little bit, it was very, very dicey for me at that period, just for me at that period of my life. And see, I was with an agency called Cameron's. So I won this thing called New Kids on the Block, did a shoot with a guy from, I think he was from Sweden. He came over to shoot me, and then I started doing some shit with them, which was really cool. Just going to castings, I got a few good things, but like I said, there was this constant thing. I just remember rocking up to castings, feeling kind of ill, and then not only that, but like leaving, and then just the comparison game, right? Like you've already got this like 15-year-old kid that doesn't feel that good about himself. Like I just said, has a bunch of people saying that you're not going to be fixed for X amount of years. Essentially, you were born not right through something that nobody can see. And then, yeah, so it was just, it was weird. It was really weird, and it's even weirder to think back at it. But yeah, so all that happened, and then around that same time, I started dabbling in more of, we'd spent a few years drinking, doing all that kind of stuff, smoking a little bit of weed. But then I really started kicking things up around that same time period. Yeah, it first started with, we'd just smoke a little bit more, we'd drink a little bit more, and then we'd started eating pills, start taking ecstasy. I remember I always hung around people that were a lot older than me, but I felt like I fit in at those moments. Like we'd get high and I wasn't anxious. I didn't feel uncomfortable. Everything looked brighter. Everything felt better for me. The come downs were f***ing terrible, don't get me wrong, but I had this weird thing in my head that was like, you've already told me to take medication to fix myself. I know this sounds ridiculous, but my brain put 2 and 2 together and went, well, why don't I just take this stuff? I don't feel anxious. I also don't feel secluded because there's always been a big stigma around mental health, especially then. I was like, well, this kind of seems cool as f*** to me. Why don't I just do this? Everyone likes me a little bit more, I can party, we stay up all night. That was a really slippery slope because I really clung on to that real tight. It started as, pills, which moved into speed. I started smoking and snorting speed. I had friends that were selling pills. Like I said, I had this thing where it was like, I felt like everyone liked me. I had lots of different groups of friends, always. I just never felt like I fit in. Like I never felt like I had a spot. And I think I always liked having lots of groups of friends because I felt like I could kind of keep everyone at a little bit of an arm's length, to be completely honest. That connection of drugs and being high on weekends also meant like I could chitter-chatter everybody's ear off. I've never used the word chitter-chatter before. I could chitter-chatter, could chat everyone's ears off. I could be, we'll keep that. I could be really good friends with everybody, and it didn't. It sounded like me, it looked like me, but I had a big wall up in the middle. But basically, while I was at school, like my mum, shit started getting bad at home because mum and dad would hear stories of me selling drugs at school. I wasn't selling drugs at school, but one of my really good friends, one of my older friends was. And I would tell everybody, all of my friends about it. Let's bring them all together. Let's all get pills. Let's get this. Let's get that. And yeah, shit started getting hard because I'd drink a lot more. I'd eat a lot more pills. I remember before one exam, it was like a Wednesday night, I ate half a pill and like partied in my room by myself and was coming down the next day at school. And I was like, what am I doing? But it was still in that realm of me trying to work everything out. So I ended up leaving school. So shit started getting really hard at home with mum and dad, started getting hard at home with my brother and my sister as well, because what I didn't know is all the weekends that I wasn't there, mum and dad were yelling at each other because they didn't know what the fuck to do with me, and then my sister and my brother would just go and kind of hide. Now mum and dad weren't violent, they weren't anything like that. I have great fucking parents. But rightfully so, they were terrified. Like, they were like, we don't know what to do with this guy. The doctors are saying he's sick. Around the same time, I started running away from home a lot. I'd leave for like a week at a time. Wouldn't answer anything, go from house to house. I remember the week before I actually left school to become a plumber, I went to a deb, got really high and ended up in Stall. I think it's like northern Victoria, and stayed there for like a week and a half. The rumours when I got back to school, I remember walking back in because mum and dad were like, you can't stay there. And I was like, I can't. No, I'm gonna go. This isn't working out for me. And I went back to school and kids going, he stole a car and drove as far as the petrol would get him. I was like, no, I fucking didn't. I got in the car with two people I was very good friends with, and they took me to their hometown, Stall. But yeah, and then I left. So I was done. I left school. A lot of my friends at the time were becoming tradesmen, plumbers, carpenters, great avenues of work, really good. I couldn't be at school, and as part of that, not feeling like I'm not fitting in, I had lots of friends that were doing this, and I was like, oh, I want to be a part of this. So I decided to leave school, and I got an apprenticeship as a mechanical plumber. It definitely gave me some sort of purpose and direction at that point in my life. This was the only time in my life that I stopped playing music for a little bit, like that 2-year period when I started taking lots of drugs at school. And when I left school to become a plumber, I was like, this is what I'm doing. This is awesome. But it kind of felt like that. And after having no direction and everyone thinking I was a failure for so long, it felt good to have your head screwed on straight, you know? That whole thing, which I didn't. I kept taking heaps of drugs on weekends. I started smoking weed every single day around that point, every single night anyway. And yeah, partying all weekend. It started going from like the pills and pills and speed to experimenting with ice and everything else, psychedelics, all that kind of stuff. It's weird because substances were just substances to me. I used and abused everything. I remember at one point dexamphetamines, which is ADD medication, I got a bottle. We used to eat them weekends and weekends because if you don't have ADD, it's essentially just speed. I remember I ate them for a whole week when I was like 19. Fucked up my stomach, like good and proper. I went to the doctor, I lost like 10 kilos in, I think it was like a week and a half. It was insane. I remember I was so scared. I was so sore, and I looked at him and I was like, I've been eating these all day, every day. And he's like, looked at me dumbfounded and just went, mate, they're not lollies. Just don't eat those. And I was like, okay, mate, it's like so f***ing simple. I didn't feel good about myself, so I would just latch on to whatever was around me. But yeah, it was just whatever we could get our hands on. So I started really taking over, and when I was 19, around the same period, I had friends that used heroin. They used heroin a lot, actually. So I dabbled with injecting that. It was it was only a handful of times, but on the last time I nearly overdosed. So I used to call it a cap. So it'd be like $50 worth. So he's like, we all got a cap. They got more. Just go down to Clifton Springs and do it in the jetty there. So we went back to his house and I had pin pricks all up and down my arms. He was so high, and it was this really f***ed up thing where I was like, I know you want to just have me experiencing what you're experiencing. I could see it. And I had, pin pricks all over my arms, and I had the first cap, and then he's like, can you taste it? Because you get this taste in the back of your throat. He did the second lot. I said yes, but he didn't wait long enough anyway. Did the second lot and actually stopped breathing. I remember passing out of my bed and everything just going black. And then I woke up to one of my good friends shaking me, going, just fucking breathe. And I took this really deep breath. I still remember the gasp like it was 3 seconds ago, and just went, and it felt like I just lifted back up. See, this is the thing, like, had my head screwed on enough to be like, don't do that again. These people don't care about you. Like, these people don't give a They just want you to be a part of whatever they're a part of. And I think there were definitely parts of that within myself as time went on, when I got more and more addicted to ice. But like, noticing and seeing that at that period, that really f***ed me up, because it was my very best friend's 18th birthday that same night. I remember after that I went to see him and he cried and he was hitting me. He goes, you f***ing care about this more than you care about me. This was the same friend that died years later. It was like everyone was just looking at me like, I was always that guy that just f***ing kept pushing things further and further and further. But it was only because I just needed to find a spot where I could fix myself, or where I didn't feel as broken, or where people would like me a little bit more, or where I could just be a little more myself. Insanity when I say it out loud now. But I just kept pushing the limit. So something that I just skipped over, I've never, like, I only really just started speaking about this the other day again, but when I was 18, I was actually 17, I was nearly 18, I actually glassed someone. It's really f***ed up. And like, Mon asked me the other day, she was like, what was your biggest regret? Or would this be your biggest regret? And I was like, yeah, it would be. It was like, out of all the shit that I've done, my compromise with all of it was, at least you're not like, and this is ridiculous to say as well, and I completely acknowledge and understand that, but I always felt like, at least you can hurt yourself as much as you need to. Well, I've been a bull in a china shop, is that the expression? With myself being the bull and the china shop for my entire life. It's like, I'll fuck everything up. It's fine. I'll cope with it. But at that period, yeah, that fucked me up, because I just didn't think I would do something like that. I saw black. I was with had a girlfriend at the time, and she was just talking to him. Like, fully, no reason for me to be doing it. I drank a little bit. I had been on antibiotics for something else. Little bit silly, but just fucking went black. And afterwards, like, f***ed him up. He had to go to hospital. I remember the police rocked up and they're like, are you the guy that did this? And the moment it happened, I was like stone cold sober. Not literally, but it was like this switch went off in my head, and it was like, you f***ed up royally. Like, royally here. This is so out of line with anything that you believe in. And I just like, admit it, acknowledge it, and just take the consequence. And I was just standing there covered in blood. And the police officer came up to me and he's like, do we even need, we don't need to cuff you, do we? And I was like, I'm not going anywhere, man. Like, this is all my fault. Put me in the back, like, I'm good to go.
Do you feel like at that point you just kind of given up on yourself?
Oh, at that moment, in that situation with what I'd done, yeah. I don't know with everything, but definitely, like, that was that switch that flipped. It was like, you're not just hurting yourself now. Like, you hurt somebody else. And, yeah, it was this weird thing. Have always taken full accountability for it. So it went to court. It ended up being, there was actually 3 at the same time. So they were very heavy-handed on this shit, as they should be. This is what I mean. I'm not trying to say that they shouldn't have been always so touchy talking around things like this, because I never want it to sound like I'm trying to say like, this shouldn't have happened to me. But it, yeah, it was a 12-month incarceration, suspended for 2 years. So there was like a time period there where I was like, my lawyer was like, you actually might go to jail. Like, there's lots of violence with alcohol around it in Geelong at the moment. They don't want this to happen anymore. They're being very heavy-handed on people that are like this. One of my really good friends, his father owns a bunch of clubs in Geelong and was actually the head of the Just Think campaign at the time. And he stood up and spoke for me. Brave man, and I have forever been grateful, because he got shot down harder than you would ever believe. The hypocrisy that they said that it was, because he was literally standing up saying there should be no more alcohol infused, is that even how you say it? Alcohol fueled violence. He basically stood up there and he's like, I understand that, but I've grown up with this kid. This is so out of character for anything that he would ever normally do to anybody. And I think it was just a good indication and maybe symptom of how far away from myself I was if I put myself in the wrong situation, or if I let an idea or a thought pattern run away from me. Really upset that happened still to this day, and have had a bad guy complex for my entire life over that and other ways that I've been in relationship settings. Can you just pause it for a sec?